Okay, so we're recording now. So welcome everybody to this presentation of Venezuela. And as I mentioned, I grew up in Venezuela. I got there when I was 5 months old. So so I feel very Venezuelan. And this presentation, you know, we'll have a little bit of everything, but it's you know, it has a lot of my best, you know, memories of Venezuela and the, you know, the places that I really love in Venezuela that really you know, made an impact on me, you know, growing up there. And I have to say that, you know, like I really grew up in the golden years of Venezuela, and I wouldn't change those years for anything. So I feel very fortunate that that I grew up in such a beautiful country. All right, so Venezuela, Little Venice. That's what Venezuela means, Little Venice. So Venezuela is actually officially called La República Bolivariana de Venezuela. And it's a country on the northern coast of South America, consisting of a continental landmass and many islands and islets in the Caribbean Sea. It has a territorial extension of 916,000 kilometers, and the population of Venezuela was estimated at 28 million in 2019. The capital and largest urban area is the city of Caracas, where I grew up. So Venezuela is called Little Venice. So according to the most popular and accepted version, in 1499, an expedition by Alonso de Ojeda visited the Venezuelan coast. And the stilt houses in Maracaibo reminded the Italian navigator Amerigo Vespucci of the city of Venice. So he named the region Venezuela, or Little Venice. And then the Spanish version of Venezuela is Venezuela. And of course, I love Venezuela and I love Venice as well. So I have a connection to both places. And actually, the only two places where they have Arte Murano in the world is in Venecia and also in Venezuela. So there's a connection with Arte Murano there as well. This is the Venezuelan flag, which I personally think is one of the prettiest flags in the world. And the symbolism traditionally ascribed to the colors is that the yellow band stands for the wealth of the land, the red for courage, and the blue for the independence from Spain, or golden America, separated from Spain by the deep blue sea. And you know, in the original flag, there were seven stars. Now in this new flag, there's 8 stars because Chavez added an extra star. But the original flag has 7 stars, and many people say that the 8th star represents Cuba, which has a very big influence in Venezuela these days. But I definitely prefer the flag with the 7 stars, which is the original flag. So the history of Venezuela. Venezuela has a complicated history, but this is just to give you a little overview. So the territory of Venezuela was colonized by Spain in 1522 amid a lot of resistance. In 1811, it became one of the first Spanish-American territories to declare its independence from the Spanish and to form part as a department of the First Republic of Colombia, known as La Gran Colombia. It became a sovereign country in 1830. And during the 19th century, Venezuela suffered a lot of political unrest and autocracy, and it remained dominated by regional military dictators until the mid 20th century. So since 1958, the country has had a series of democratic governments where most of the region was ruled by military dictatorships, and they had economic prosperity. Economic shocks in the 1980s and the 1990s brought about major political crisis and widespread social unrest, including the deadly Caracazo riots in 1989, 2 attempted coups in 1992, and the impeachment of a president for public fund charges in 1993. I was there for all of that. And it was definitely a very crazy time. You know, we had curfews, and yeah, there was a lot of unrest at that time. The collapse in confidence in the existing party saw the 1998 Venezuelan presidential election, where Hugo Chavez won. And that was the catalyst for the Bolivarian Revolution, which began with the 1999 Constituent Assembly, where a new constitution of Venezuela was imposed. The government populist social welfare policies, bolstered by soaring oil prices, temporarily increasing social spending and reducing economic inequality and poverty in the early years of the regime. The Venezuelan presidential election was widely disputed, leading to widespread riots, which triggered another nationwide crisis that continues to this day. Venezuela has the world's largest known oil reserves and has been one of the leading exporters of oil. Previously, the country was underdeveloped and has agricultural commodities such as coffee and cocoa, but oil quickly became, the main source of exports and government revenues. The excesses and poor policies of the government led to the collapse of Venezuela's entire economy. The country grapples with record hyperinflation. It has the highest inflation in the world. I don't even know what that number is now, but it's extremely high. Shortages of basic goods, unemployment, poverty, high child mortality, malnutrition, severe crime, and corruption. These factors precipitated the Venezuelan migrant crisis, where more than 3 million people have fled the country. So Venezuela's oil. Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves in the world, and because it has so much oil, it should be like another, it should be like another Dubai. It shouldn't be a country that's in such bad shape right now. So it's really sad, but it shows how it's been so incredibly mismanaged from all sides, from the government. This is Caracas, the capital city, where I grew up. And Caracas is officially called Santiago de León de Caracas, and it's the capital and largest city of Venezuela. And Caracas is also Venezuela's cultural capital, with many restaurants, theaters, museums, and shopping centers. And it has some of the tallest skyscrapers in Latin America, such as the Parque Central Towers. And the Museum of Contemporary Art of Caracas is one of the most important in South America. This is a really nice picture of Caracas. Caracas is in a valley, and it's surrounded by mountains. And one of the most popular mountains is called the Avila Mountain. So this is the Avila Mountain, and there's so many songs about the Avila Mountain, and it's a mountain, which is very popular, for people go hiking in that mountain, and it's just it's a beautiful, beautiful mountain. I remember very vividly, looking at these mountains, and they're very beautiful. They look like velvet mountains, and they're really, really, really beautiful. So yeah, so Caracas, so the Avila Mountain and the division between the buildings and the slums, or ranchos as they're called in Venezuela. So sadly, Caracas is one of the most dangerous cities in the world now, due to the very high crime and murder rate. So in this picture, you can kind of see the difference, because on this side you have normal buildings, and on this side you have the slums, like the mountains, like here are full of slums, or ranchos as they're called in Venezuela, and they're called favelas in Brazil. And because there's so much poverty, there's so many slums, which is really sad, because there's a very big very big difference, in terms of people, that have a lot of money, and then people, the people that are extremely poor, and then the middle class is getting smaller every day, because of the massive, economic crisis that the country is going through. So the most important cities in Venezuela are Caracas, Valencia, and Maracaibo. And this picture here is the Puente de Maracaibo, which is very famous, and many songs have been written about this bridge as well. So Venezuela has two presidents, and Venezuela is probably the only country in the world that has two presidents, and they're Nicolás Maduro and Juan Guaidó. So a crisis concerning the identity of the legitimate president of Venezuela has been underway since the 10th of January, 2019. So, more than 2 years. So with the nation and the world divided in support for Nicolás Maduro or Juan Guaidó, the process and results of the 20th of May 2018 presidential election were widely disputed. So it's a very crazy situation because, this situation of these two presidents has been going on for more than 2 years. And who knows how much longer it's gonna go on for. So it's a very strange situation. So protests. So the Venezuelan protests are a collection of protests that have been organized since the 11th of January 2019 as a coordinated effort to remove Nicolás Maduro from the presidency. Demonstrations began following Maduro's controversial second inauguration, developing into a presidential crisis between Maduro and the National Assembly president, Juan Guaidó. So there's been, before COVID, there was a lot of protests in Venezuela. And I mean, the last 20 years have seen, many protests. But of course, what usually happens with these protests is that they'll go through stages where they protest a lot and then nothing happens. And then, and then they give up and then they start protesting again. So now, of course, with the whole COVID situation, there hasn't been, protests in a long time. But probably once things get more normal, they'll, the protests will be back. So abajo la dictadura means down with a dictatorship, because basically the government of Nicolás Maduro is a dictatorship. And more precisely, it's a narco dictatorship, because there's a lot of drug money in there as well, and then the people that are part of the government are the ones running, these drug cartels, which is very, it's very strange and very shocking. But everybody knows that it's true. So Angel Falls, or the Salto Ángel, is the world's highest waterfall. And it got its name from Jimmy Angel, who was the first to fly over the falls. I've seen Angel Falls, in person, and it's just like, it's one of the most amazing places that you could see. It's truly mesmerizing and magical. So if you ever get a chance to go to Venezuela just to see Angel Falls, would be worth it. But of course, when things get better. But yeah, Angel Falls is definitely worth seeing one day. So Angel Falls is the world's highest uninterrupted waterfall, with a height of 979 meters and a plunge of 807 meters. The waterfall drops over the edge of the Avila Mountain in the Canaima National Park, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the Gran Sabana region of Bolívar State. So the place where Angel Falls is called Canaima. And I went there when I was very little, but I still remember very vividly this place. Like, this place is literally one of the prettiest places where I've ever been, and, one day I'd like to go back to Venezuela when things are, when things are better. And I definitely want to go back to Canaima, because that is truly one of the most magical places in the world. So if you ever get a chance, go to Canaima. This is more pictures of Canaima. And in 1994, the Canaima National Park was named a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. And then you can get around with these little boats, which are really nice. So the world's highest cable car is in Venezuela as well. So after years of closure, the world's highest and second longest cable car reopened in 2016. This epic piece of engineering was built in the 1960s to take passengers on a 12.5-kilometer journey from Mérida to 4,756 meter Espejo Peak. So this is Pico Espejo with snow. And this is where I saw snow, the snow for the first time. And I can safely say that I'm the only, person from Finland who has seen snow for the first time in Venezuela. So yeah, so this is where I saw snow for the first time. And there are two mountain peaks with snow in Venezuela, Pico Bolívar and Pico Espejo. And there's every time you go to Pico Espejo, you don't always get snow. So you have to be lucky, you have to be lucky to see the snow. So Venezuela has beautiful beaches. Like one of the most beautiful things about Venezuela are the beaches. And one of my favorite ones is Cayo Sombrero in Morrocoy in Falcón State. And this picture is from Cayo Sombrero. And I used to go to this beach, which is it's an island. I used to go to this island with my family, and at that point you could stay on these islands in tents. You could spend the night, and at night you would look up to the sky, and you could feel like you could touch the stars, and you just laid on the sand, and you saw so many shooting stars, and it was truly, truly magical. But you can't do that anymore. It's too dangerous to do that now. But back when I was still there, you could do that, and it was really nice. So this is another picture of Cayo Sombrero. Yeah, where we used to sleep in tents, snorkel with amazing corals and colorful fish, and watch the shooting stars at night. Then there's Los Roques. The Los Roques are archipelago. So the archipelago's coral reef is popular with snorkelers and scuba divers. And the park is renowned for its isolated white sand beaches, windsurfing, fishing, and sailing. Like, I can truly say that Los Roques, again, is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and one of the prettiest beaches I've ever seen, especially the water. Like the water in Los Roques, like it's this turquoise color. Like it's truly, truly incredible. Everybody that goes to Los Roques falls in love with the place. And these are some houses. These are some houses in Los Roques. And then we also have deserts. In Coro, we have the Médanos de Coro National Park. So yeah, so there's also a desert with dunes, that you can go see. And then there's Margarita Island. Margarita Island belongs to Venezuela, and it's a very popular holiday destination. And it's full of beaches and shopping, shopping malls. And this is one of my favorite beaches. It's called Playa El Agua, which means, water beach. There's a lot of water on Water Beach. And yeah, it's a really beautiful beach. And then we get to the food of Venezuela. So the arepas, the arepa is like one of the most popular Venezuelan foods. So arepa is a type of food made of ground maize dough and can be filled with different types of cheese and meat. The reina pepiada is a popular filling, and it includes chicken, mayonnaise, and avocado. So basically, these arepas can be filled with anything. You can have the reina pepiada. You can put ham. You can put ham and cheese, and whatever you want. You can put in these arepas. And Venezuelans love their arepas. I mean, you can have an arepa for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you can basically eat an arepa at any time of the day. Whenever you want. And I live here in Dublin, and there's an arepera here, like close to my house. So whenever I get a craving for an arepa, I can go and get an arepa myself. And the reina pepiada is one of my favorites. Then we have the empanadas. The empanadas are very popular, and they're filled with cheese, meat, and cazón, which is shark. So empanadas are very popular in Venezuela as well. And then we have the Ayakas. The ayaca is a tamale from Venezuela, and it consists of a corn dough stuffed with a stew of beef, pork, or chicken, and other ingredients such as raisins, capers, and olives. It is eaten at Christmas time, and families prepare ayacas together. So yeah, so the tradition of the ayacas is huge in Venezuela. And basically, they usually prepare them like at the end of November, beginning of December. And like it takes like whole day. Like usually it's like the whole family gets together, you know, to make these ayacas. And then the tradition is to eat ayacas like all of December, you know, but you can only eat ayacas in December. Like you can't eat them in any other month. And they're really nice. They're really nice and very Venezuelan. And they're wrapped in banana leaves. They're wrapped in banana leaves. So so this is a very Venezuelan food. And then you have dancing. Joropo is Venezuela's national dance. And Venezuelans also love dancing salsa and merengue. And I mean, of course, I love dancing salsa and merengue as well, since I grew up dancing a lot in Venezuela. The guacamayas. The guacamayas are my favorite bird. And you see them all over the country, and they are very chatty as well. Like you see these guacamayas flying everywhere, and they're very loud. They're very loud and very colorful. And yeah, I just love these birds. They always remind me of Venezuela, the guacamayas as well. And here you have guacamayas in Caracas. You know, the guacamayas hang out in people's balconies in Caracas, which is really funny, you know, and then people like feed them and stuff, you know. So yeah, the Caracas guacamayas. And then we have the chigüire. The capybara or chigüire is the largest living rodent in the world, and you can find it in the Venezuelan llanos. So this is, you know, this is an animal which is very unusual. You know, and it's yeah, like it's you find it in Venezuela. And some people eat it as well, but I've never eaten it. Like I really don't feel like eating like a big rat. But yeah, that's the Venezuelan chigüire. And then you have Carnaval. Carnaval is more of a huge party featuring parades, concerts, costumes, and copious eating and drinking. Venezuela is a predominantly Catholic country, and Carnaval still has a strong religious connection. But today, everyone takes part, whether they celebrate Lent or not. So Carnaval is a huge celebration. And many times, you know, Carnaval and Easter are very close, you know, so that's a very big, you know, holiday time in Venezuela. Many times, you know, people like take like a week off for Carnaval and like a week off for Easter. And my birthday many times fell around, like my birthday is 3rd of March. So many times it was around Carnaval time. So then I would end up having, you know, costume parties for for my birthday party, which was a lot of fun. And yeah, people dress up and they have, you know, lots of parties, and it's a fun time. And this woman here, like she's dressed like Simón Bolívar, which was, you know, he was the liberator of Venezuela, and he was the liberator of all of South America, basically. But yeah, he was Venezuelan, so she's dressed like Simón Bolívar here with the colors. And then Miss Venezuela. With 23 victorious titles, Venezuela has reputedly won more than any other country in pageantry. Venezuela is also the first and only country to win all 4 pageants multiple times. Miss Universe 7 times and Miss World 6 times. So Venezuelans take these beauty pageants extremely seriously. Like whenever, you know, whoever is elected Miss Venezuela is, you know, she is trained and drilled. I mean, they go to win. They go to win these beauty pageants. So yeah, so that's why they win so much. And of course, I mean, they are beautiful. I mean, Venezuela is a big mix of races, right? It's a big mix of races, and the people, you know, the people are very beautiful people. Then here you have some Venezuelan slang words that everybody can can learn. So chamo and chama. This one means, like, chamo means bro or dude, and then chama is like, you know, some, like you would call a friend chama. You know, like I could call like my Venezuelan friend a chama. And then you can also say like chamito or chamita, and that basically like means like, you know, little girl or little boy. But this is a word that's used a lot like between friends, you know, chamo and chama. Like an example, like, chamo, you'll never guess what happened last night. And then pana, you know, pana is a friend. You know, pana is a friend, you know, like he's super pana, you know, he's like my good friend. Chévere. Chévere is probably the most Venezuelan word to ever exist. It means nice and great, and it's used all the time. So it doesn't matter what level of the positivity spectrum, you know, chévere can always apply to it. You know, like chévere is used all the time in Venezuela, you know, for everything. So, you know, as an example, the movie chévere, dinner chévere, your wedding ceremony, super chévere. So you can use chévere for everything. And catira means a blonde woman. So like I'm a catira in Venezuela. So thank you. I hope you can visit Venezuela one day and experience all the beauty in person. Of course, you know, right now the situation is really bad in Venezuela, so I don't recommend anybody to go to Venezuela now, but I really hope that the situation will get better, hopefully soon. And, you know, once the situation gets better, you know, Venezuela would definitely be like a beautiful country, you know, to visit, you know, because it has so much to offer. There's so much to see in Venezuela. So yeah, so I truly hope that I can go back to Venezuela one day again, and that all of you can visit Venezuela one day as well. So so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll stop the recording as well.